performance. Okay? And also, if you check on to the doors here on my sides here, and then one in the back, we have emergency doors, just in case of any emergencies. You can exit through those doors, but do not worry. We're going to have a fun, great old time, all right? Am I right? Come on, guys. I really appreciate you guys coming out here on a Wednesday night to the East Meadow Public Library. Trust me, this would not work out without your participation, and I appreciate you guys for coming out today for this. All right, so just to let you guys know, this is It Came From the Radio with Mark Torres. And basically how this works, yeah, go ahead, yeah, Mark Torres. Yeah! Yes, Mark. And his merry men, yeah, animals. All right, and what they're going to be doing is they're going to be talking to all their special guests. This is going to be like a radio program. You're going to be the live studio audience.
So whenever we say live studio audience, you want to hear it.
All right.
So let's practice. I say live studio audience, live studio audience.
All right. They're going to be talking about current events, a little bit about Robin Channing, and then stick around. We're going to have a nice little show of Robin's special talents, shall I say. All right. So it's going to be a special show. Hold on to your raffle tickets. That'll get you, if you win, you get a free reading from Robin Channing here today. And yeah, just enjoy the show, guys, all right? I really appreciate it again. Thank you. Mark, you take it from here.
The following is brought to you in part by MFC Studios. The views of the show's host and guests do not necessarily reflect those of the management, owners, or staff of this radio station. And now, It Came From the Radio.
And welcome once again to It Came From Radio, the official of the Big Apple Con. This is your host, Mark Torres, speaking. We are here live in front of a live studio audience at our 77th live show, courtesy of the East Meadow Public Library. I am here with our senior correspondent, Troy Saladino.
Hello, fun seekers!
We have Man Jenny Feldy. And we have our special guest who's going to be talking to, with, and about, which is awesome because he's here. We have Mentalist Robin Channing.
Please.
As I mentioned, we're going to be talking to Robin in just a few minutes, but before we do that, we have to take it away with the news. The news is brought to you in part by the fine folks of the Big Apple Con, of which we are the official radio show of, celebrating over 25, 6, 7, 8, 9 years of comic book and pop culture stuff. For more information, go to www.bigapplecc.com. Their next convention has not been scheduled yet, but I'm sure they will have one more this year. Also, we're also brought to you in part by the fine folks of sci-fi.radio. That's sci-fi for your Wi-Fi. I also want to give our shout out to our Patreons, of which there are Danny Grillo, award-winning director Jared Burrell, Kyle Horn, Millie Cortez, Newsday famous Dresden Media, Unjigun, Shadow Rabbit Art, Yasmin Ray, Rosa, and the Huracan. If you want to have your own little shout out, go to our website, www.itcamefromradio.com. A little button on there takes you right to our Patreon page. Also on the It Came From the Radio site is my book, Designated, a book that took 30 years to make. It was recently performed as a radio play at New York Comic Con about two warring alien races fighting over a newly discovered power source to warfight its way to planet Earth, and as a result, some humans gain abilities. Normally we always take it away with the sad news, but this week we do not have any sad news. We're going to take away with the regular news. From the... If the guy would have caught the ball in the first quarter for the touchdown, the 49ers would have won department. None other than CBS has announced that this past Super Bowl, number 58, for those of you keeping count, was the most watched live television broadcast in TV history with 120 million viewers. On top of that, an additional 3.4 million viewers watched on Paramount Plus, Nickelodeon, or Univision, making the official total 123.4 million people watching. Of note, last year's Super Bowl, which is number 57, for those of you keeping track, was the record holder for the most watched with an average audience of 115.1 million viewers. Did you see the Super Bowl, Man Jenny Feldy?
I saw less than I saw of any Super Bowl. I saw 0.
You didn't even watch the Super Bowl at all. Did anybody in our studio audience watch the Super Bowl? Let's hear it.
Yeah!
Did you see the Super Bowl?
Where?
Did you see the Super Bowl?
I did not. I just watched the movie trailers after the fact on YouTube. I'm sorry.
All right, fair enough, but it's crazy how 123 million people watch the Super Bowl. It's still, in this day and age, a viable thing that everybody comes together to watch. So moving on.
You gotta realize everybody was in parties and bars. There was group watchings of that.
There were times I used to be hired at people's homes during Super Bowl watchings, and I'd be strolling around as the entertainment.
Wait, so during the Super Bowl party, you would entertain and just distract from the game?
Well, I wouldn't so much call it distract from the game, but that there were people who were not into the game. That's where I came in.
Huh. And as a mentalist, were you able to determine who was the winner, so everybody in the Super Bowl party would know ahead of time?
If that were part of the package deal by the client, then yes.
Fair enough. So moving on, from the editor insert clip here department, none other than Sony has announced that American-born Chinese actor Ben Wang will play the lead role in the next Karate Kid movie alongside both Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio. Still no word on yet or how or if it ties into the 2010 Jaden Smith Karate Kid film or the Cobra Kai series on Netflix. You're a fan of the Cobra Kai Karate Kid? No.
No.
Saying not even.
No.
You've never seen any of that
I
stuff?
saw Karate Kid, now I'm on to the next topic. How many times are we going to do this?
Oh, that's fine. Fair
Wasn't that
enough.
a thing 40 years ago, Karate Kid?
Karate Kid was 40 years ago? Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm on to
Karate
the
Kid
next.
fan?
Yeah.
Not a Karate Kid fan. You a Karate Kid fan?
Yes, I'm a fan. I even got a photo with Ralph Macchio, so yay. And I do, depending on the metal bending act that I do, make references to Cobra Kai.
Oh, okay. So are you
Just kidding about that. I'm a big Jackie Chan fan.
big Jackie Chan fan, but what about Karate Kid?
Yeah, the original one.
So are you familiar with Ben Wang?
Yes.
So you watched American Born Chinese?
I think it'll work.
All right, fair enough.
It'll definitely work.
Hopefully. I mean, I would.
No, there's
I
no
would love to
hopeful
see.
about it. They got all the combinations that are gonna make it work, but I think it'll be a blockbuster.
Do you think they're gonna have Jackie Chan fight Ralph Macchio?
I don't know what the script has, but that would be insane.
All right.
Just the anticipation, just thinking about it is alone
Yeah,
an
exactly.
attraction.
Right, exactly.
Whether it happens or not, just the idea of it is just entertaining and engaging enough.
So moving on, from the That's a Lot of Nuts department, the new spy film Argyle has held on to the #1 spot in the domestic box office, pulling in an additional $6.2 million in ticket sales in its second week of release, beating out the new horror comedy Lisa Frankenstein, which came in at #2 spot with $3.6 million in its first week of release. For those of you keeping track, Wonka is the highest grossing film of this year so far with $72 million, followed by the new Mean Girls movie, which is based on the play of the movie of the same name with $69.1 million. Argyle sits at #9. Did you hear about Lisa Frankenstein?
Just now.
Just now.
Sounds awesome.
So
That sounds cool.
it's made by the Diablo Cody, who did Jennifer's Body.
Right.
And it's about a romantic comedy where the girl resurrects a guy and starts killing other guys to put body parts to make a boyfriend.
Yeah, I actually started in the movie just with this idea, where someone killed me to take my body, to use my body.
What movie was
for this.
that?
It's called Frank. It's like a Frankenstein movie.
When is that coming out?
It's out. It's I'm in a lot of stuff that's just. you
It's
don't know
out
about.
there in the internet.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Have you heard of Lisa Frankenstein?
Yeah, sounds cool.
No, I've heard of Jennifer's Body, but the thing is, Argyle, I had a passing interest in it. I would like to see it mainly because of Henry Cavill, not just because he played Superman, but for me, most importantly, because when he was much younger, he played in The Count of Monte Cristo. He was
that was him?
Albert. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
that was Albert Mondego when Henry Cavill was much younger. And when I realized that too late, after having skipped over an appearance of Henry Cavill at Ace Comic-Con, which was here in the New York area, I skipped that at the time, and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm looking at the credits for The Count of Monte Cristo. Henry Cavill as the character I just mentioned.
Right.
I'm like, oh, I just missed my chance. Oh my.
Didn't he also Henry play in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., the remake?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I
Did you
think
see
he
that?
did.
I know he was in a Mission Impossible.
Yeah. No, I know, no, I think he played. Does anybody know if Henry played in the remake of Man from U.N.C.L.E.?
That sounds
Wait.
We're all
Wasn't
out
that Keanu
here.
Reeves?
No.
No. I'm getting my movies mixed
All
up.
right, that's your homework, tomorrow, find out, call us.
I mean, I could go on IMDb right now, but
We'll just move on. Move on. From the editor also played clip here department. None other than Alex Winter has announced that Ed Solomon and Chris Masterson are writing a fourth Bill and Ted movie. Those of you who don't know, or care for that matter, Ed and Chris were the original creators and writers for the previous 3 movies. Alex says, we're tinkering with a fourth movie, ideas that all of us like, and us guys are going to write, so we'll see. It takes time to get these things going, and we never want to get them unless they're great. They, meaning Chris and Ed, feel the same way. It has to be right. We love the Bill and Ted movies because they're oddball. They're not going to be typical mainstream films. They've never been cash grab movies. It's nothing to get rich off of, and from the Bill and Ted series. We really do make them sincerely from a place of love and interest. That was a really good idea from the writers that came up with the fourth kind that's kind of obvious. I don't want to give it away, but I kind of give it away because I would be drawn and quartered, and it'd be a really good idea, an obvious idea. It will get written, and we'll see if it can actually get made. Bill and Ted, are we gonna, no, yes?
Now I want to see it. The young child, I walked out of the theater and I thought they were idiots because I thought stupid was stupid.
Right.
And now, stupid is often smart.
Okay.
It's not stupid. Stupid? I don't know.
Fair enough. Did you see Bill and Ted?
Yes, I saw the first 2 on the big screen way back when, and I enjoyed it. I liked the whole weird juxtaposition of 2 California surfer dudes mixed with historical figures. There's a kind of fun dumbness about it, and yeah, I'll agree there is a sort of stupid element involved there, Jen. But for me, it's a guilty pleasure kind of stupid. And I just like seeing Napoleon going down a water slide, or Genghis Khan saying bogus at a shopping mall, or Abraham Lincoln saying "Party on, dudes!"
Bill and Ted fans too?
I just, because I'm an old timer, I love the idea that George Carlin was the mediator.
Oh, right.
Yes, late great
Rufus,
George Carlin.
yeah, I love those movies.
So the one thing that always bothered me about the Bill and Ted movies is that having seen all 3 of them in the theater, I actually got to see Bill and Ted 3 in a drive-in, which was an amazing experience because the pandemic was going on.
These guys don't know what a drive-in,
I remember driving, so yeah.
The second movie kind of just tied up the whole story, and it kind of just finished, and it was like the end. And then the third movie, they kind of made, well, it really didn't end, so it kind of negates the ending of the second film.
Yeah.
And what was interesting about it is that if you remember the first film, where they were like, oh, we need to have something, but we don't have time to get the keys now, so we have to wait until after the performance to get the keys, and we'll leave it for ourselves, a whole time travel thing. And that's what the third movie was about. It was a line of dialogue which they stretched out into a whole movie. So while it was nice seeing the characters back together and the actors getting work and all that fun stuff, I was kind of disappointed that the story was a one-line dialogue that they decided to stretch out to a whole 90-minute movie. I'm dubious about there being a fourth one.
When you were in the theater, was there a live studio audience?
Moving on. From the editor insert clip here also. There's going to be a lot of clips on this show. None other than Billy Joel has announced that after a 17-year hiatus, he has released a brand new song. This past February 1st, he released Turn the Lights Back On. Has hit streaming services and will be additionally released in limited edition 7-inch vinyl. Those of you not paying attention, or care for that matter, Billy's last song, All My Life, came out in 2007. Before that was a hit song on the River Dreams in 1993. Billy has still been performing all these years and will end his residence at Madison Square Garden with his 100th performance at the venue at the end of July. Now, I was a big Billy Joel fan. I was excited that he's going to have a new song. I heard the song, and I was not excited anymore. I think he should have stopped making the music.
My friend who's a big Billy Joel fan said the same thing, but then again, Liberty DeVito went on record to saying that it was pretty good. He was pretty happy with it.
Okay.
Liberty DeVito being his old drummer.
Billy Joel fan, yes, no?
No, but the guy's still alive. He was good at it at one point. Let him have some fun.
Alright, fair enough. You a Billy Joel fan?
Not a fan, but I liked one or two of his songs, like "We Didn't Start the Fire," which was one of his great classics, and a couple others which don't spring to mind at the moment. But as far as I'm concerned, he's made some good songs that I've liked a few.
Right.
So there it is.
Alright. So for the last bit of news.
Thank God.
From the How the Mighty Have Fallen department, none other than National Amusements has announced the closing of 2 more locations in the New York area. Both Jamaica Multiplex and College Point Multiplex are set to show their final films this year, with Linden Multiplex already having closed its doors in January. Farmingdale, Broadway, Island 16, and Cinema Deluxe, which is in Yonkers, are the only theaters in the New York area that are left, and National Amusements, which at its peak had 150 movie theaters, are down to just 18. Wow. I used to work for that company and the Sunrise Cinemas for 10 years. And it's wild how the movie theaters, and they were number 3, because you have AMC, Regal, and then it was National Amusements. And the fact that they're down to just 18 locations from 150 at its height is a sad state of affairs of where the movie industry is going. As I mentioned many times on the show before, I went to the National Association of Theater Organizers a couple of years ago when I was still working for the company, and the movie companies that are making movies hate movie theaters because they're a middleman. So what they're trying to do is, back then, it was about 15 years ago, they were trying to figure out how to get their movies directly to the consumer. Then obviously streaming came out, and that's a big thing now. So now the movie theaters are trying to scramble to get people to come into their theaters. And the resolution was to try and have alternative content. Boxing, Super Bowl, that kind of stuff. Massage therapists.
Opera in certain cases.
I
Wait,
would go see a movie if there was a massage therapist this
wait,
week.
you would see it, would the movie be playing as you were getting the massage?
Yes.
So it would be like people laying down,
Yes.
and you went like this watching the movie?
Yes. The only way to eat, the only way to watch a movie, lying down, and no one's talking to you. Great.
Yeah, and there are movie theaters that do that. Instead of actual chairs, you've got couches that you can just recline and lay back on, and the ushers are more waiters, and you can just place your orders, and they bring your food and your drinks.
Instead of being a waiter, make them a masseuse, and now the place won't close because you need it. You need what they have.
All right,
Yeah.
let's poll the audience by applause. How many people would go to a movie theater if you got a massage while watching a movie?
I'm waiting for that.
Oh,
was
save
expecting.
AMC, save the
All right,
theaters.
fair enough. Charlie, you have 2 cents?
Leave me alone.
You know, I'd like to add something else. I have found that a movie theater can be a really interesting venue for live entertainment because there were times I've worked at the AMC movie theater on Broadway for an event called the Urban Action Showcase.
I know those guys, yeah.
Yeah, and my first time that I was there, I performed at the base of it, and the way the seats were, it was kind of the elevated seat, similar to this,
right.
And you can all see down to the bottom of where the stage is beneath the screen. And they had me perform my my metal bending work because I tie in metal bending with martial arts, and because the Urban Action Showcase is a martial arts theme convention, it was all apropos to that. And when I was working there with my mentalism and my metal bending and all the other wonderful things I do, and okay, I sound conceited there, it was such a cool experience for the live audience to see some live entertainment in a movie theater. That's something else. And I love the masseuse idea. I can't compete with that. But at the same time, like live entertainment in a movie theater, I think is like a whole new dimension as well.
Exactly.
Well, because you guys are all young, if you remember, Radio City Music Hall was a theater. And it had I got my group right here, the Paramount in Brooklyn. See a show and then you see Sinatra perform. It was great. That was the original idea for theater. There you go. Thank you, guys.
So that's it for the news. So we're going to take a quick break in front of our live studio audience. Came from the radio.
Hey everybody, this is Todd McFarlane of the record-setting Spawn comic series. And if you're looking for any kind of cool conversation about creators, about entertainment, about all that good stuff, you go to It Came From The Radio. You're listening to the right spot.
This is Quentin Flynn, popular voice actor known for Axel, Tamon, and Raiden from the Metal Gear series. And you're listening to It Came From The Radio. Stick around.
Hey, I'm Mike Kingston, the writer and creator of Headlocked. And I am WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler. And guess what you're listening to? You're listening to It Came From The Radio.
Hi, this is Amy Jo Johnson, writer-director from the film The Space Between, and you're listening to It Came From The Radio.
Meet Grimlock having fun on It Came From The Radio. Meet Greg Berger also.
Now, back to our show.
And welcome back to It Came From Radio, officially Big Apple Con. This is your host, Mark Torres, speaking in front of a live studio audience. Woo! At the East Meadow Public Library, where they have tons and tons of programming, most of which are free. That's www.eastmeadow.info, one of which is our show, It Came From Radio, which is on every single month. As I mentioned before, I'm here with our senior correspondent, Charlie Saladino.
Hey, Fink.
What the hell was that?
I says, hey, people.
Oh, okay. And
You rang me, hear me. You didn't hear that?
No, and Man Jenny Feldy ran away. She'll be back in 2 seconds. And we have our special guest talking to women about, which is Mentalist Robin Channing. So,
Greetings
Robin,
once again.
Robin. So I guess the most important question that everybody will want to know is, what is a mentalist? Because we have an illusionist, we have a magician, we have a mind reader. What is a mentalist? What is that category?
All right, well, a mentalist is, well, a lot of us who are mentalists have more or less differing definitions of them, but for the sake of simplicity, I like to define a mentalist as a magician who specializes in phenomenon relating to the mind.
So how does one decide that's the course of action they want to be when they grow up, or is that something that you're initially born with?
That was my question.
Yeah, that is at the mercy of the individual performer. There are people who are inspired by mentalists, everybody from Kreskin to even further back, Dunninger, and nowadays some of the luminaries like Banachek and so forth. A lot of great mentalists. There are people who are inspired by other mentalists and decide to go into that field directly, but then there are a great many others who start as magicians, but then want to branch into, say, a more serious branch of the art, which is almost its own art altogether. You know, it's so weird because mentalism and magic are separate and at the same time have a sense of overlap. It's almost like quantum mechanics. How can light be both particles and waves at the same time? It's paradoxical, but somehow it works. So that's how magic and mentalism can sort of less coexist. They are separate and at the same time they overlap. So I looked at it from two standpoints, going into more and more the mentalism, looking at it in terms of certain principles of magic, but taking to a more psychological or mental point of view, or just doing a deep dive into the mentalism aspect and just investing in it. It's sort of weird having multiple perspectives at the same time, deep diving into this field. So that's just the way I look at it.
Well, again, as you were saying, people that come and go in this field, growing up, I was a big fan of Kreskin. I thought he was amazing. That's why they called him the amazing.
Of course, yes.
And I have met him several times, and he is really a very, very interesting man, and he is amazing, and he's a great guy, and just everything he accomplished is like crazy, and I'm sure you know his work.
I know his work. I've seen his show. As a matter of fact, last year I saw a show that he did out in Atlantic City. I've met him several times at conventions, and he's one of the luminaries in the business. And therefore, I consider myself greatly fortunate to have met him, to have conversed with him, to have learned from him. So, Kreskin truly is the amazing one.
He hypnotized my mom twice. She's very impressionable, but back to you. Now, what is, according to you, the experience of the impossible?
Interesting. The experience of the impossible. You see, much like how magic and mentalism is at the mercy of the performer who studies in it and engages in it, the experience of the impossible is more about the mystery. Because in my field, in my understanding of it, or rather my definition of it, it's an experience of seeing something really incredible and not knowing how it's done, right? Because when you know how it's done, like not just say, oh, it's done by this, even with something of a pseudo explanation or a pseudo-false explanation, like saying right out the gate that it's neuro-linguistic programming or other things like that, I don't see that as a mystery, because then that is based on a very form of psychological science as an answer. In my definition of my work, what the mystery is, there is no definition, there is no answer. So, or even I sometimes like to say, there are possible answers, but the answers can contradict each other. And it's much like, for any of you adults who have seen The Dark Knight, my example is the Joker, where he talked about the scars on his face. In one instance, he talked about how he had an alcoholic, abusive father who cut his face and therefore gave him the facial scar. In a separate explanation, he told a woman that he had a wife and she was very depressed, and so to alleviate her depression, he cut his own face. So I'm sorry to bring up some rather gruesome subject matter, but you see that there are two explanations that cancel each other out. So therefore, I sometimes do that just to create a sense of intrigue with my own work. I say, okay, I could have anticipated how you guys would arrive at a certain outcome, or I could have influenced you to arrive at such an outcome. So either I predict your actions or I control your actions. I'm not saying what I'm doing. It's a question for you. I don't give any answers. I simply raise the questions. And when there are questions, then you have mystery, and then you have impossibility.
But when you're practicing your mentalism, you know the answer. You know exactly, or should know, what's going on. So it's more of a mathematical type situation in your mind.
Yeah.
Despite the fact of what you're presenting to them, you already have the answer in your head, correct?
Yeah. Well, it's very similar to how a story writer knows the ending to his or her own story way in advance. It's just a matter of taking the audience on a journey to arrive at that destination. See, the parallel is very strong that way, and I think that's about the best way I can answer that particular question. You know?
It's sort of like when a magician does a trick. It's a simple trick, but then he has the theatrics, like he'll set up a whole cafe scene and do a whole act,
right?
and all of a sudden he does the trick, and then and it's a small trick, but the production is, and everybody goes, "Oh my God!" Right? It's like that, right?
That's yeah. You see, there are different styles to different performers. There are certain performers who go for the set design and the costuming. Nothing against them; they're great. They're offering a really good, high production theatrical experience that way. In my own work, I tend towards more or less shaping the show for the audience, because I've done some public venues, but quite often I get hired for private parties, corporate work, and therefore it's up to me to craft an experience relative to that environment, relative to that clientele. That makes sense, yeah? Yeah, so therefore I have, instead of having my own environment, my own stage, I have somebody else's environment and have to create an experience within that. And I liken it very often to Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee talked about becoming like water. Water takes the shape of the vessel that holds it. If you pour water into the cup, the water becomes the shape of the cup. Put water into a vase, it becomes the shape of the vase. And a lot of my own work, I believe, I structure in a similar vein. I take my own work and it takes the shape of that audience.
When you have multiple different types of audiences, how do you determine which way the performance will go? Is that something that you, when you meet the people, you're like, okay, this guy's this guy, this is what I'm feeling?
Yeah, that's more or less that, yeah.
That you already have something planned, in situation A I go here, situation B I go here.
Yeah, exactly. I don't so much think in terms of a linear script, I think in more of a really broad flow chart, like a tree with all its roots branching in so many different directions. So I tend to be on my, I love working like that because it keeps me in the moment and it creates an experience for the audience that we're all together in the same moment. They're not just going by a recited script, no. They're experiencing something for their first time and also for the performer's first time. So it's kind of a nice little dual synergy going on where both performer and audience come to the same place in a much more engaging, organic kind of way.
How does being exposed to different topics during the day influence your work and influence you as a magician?
Interesting that you should say that, because, well, so many ways I can think of to answer that. I had some thoughts about that earlier today, but you know what? Everyday topics, like, for example, Christopher Nolan, I just mentioned The Dark Knight, and I just mentioned how the Joker would give kind of canceling explanations to his work, and that is like a thought type of influence. And also James Cameron, actually one of my other favorite movie directors, him, Christopher Nolan. I'm really strongly inspired by different movie directors and authors and so forth. James Cameron had a scene in the first Terminator movie where Kyle Reese first rescues Sarah Connor and they go on this car chase and the Terminator was chasing them in another car. So physically and visually you're seeing a car chase. But what's going on at the same time is Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor having a conversation. Kyle Reese is explaining to Sarah Connor what's going on. It's an exposition scene. He's explaining what the Terminator is, how it came from the future, how it was programmed to assassinate her to prevent her future son from being born. So what's going on here? It's a car chase scene, so visually there's action, and it's an exposition scene at the same time. Usually those two scenes are separate. Exposition scene is just two people sitting around in a room, two or more people talking to each other. Car chase scene, and we've got more than enough Fast and Furious movies to supplement that kind of criteria, where it's just lots of visual action. But James Cameron had the brilliant idea of having both at the same time. And that's something I like to structure my own performances with. I like to create a whole lot of action, but at the same time feed the audience what's going on through the action. So that's one way, another way.
When you have props that you use, they have they have their own set outcome, right? For like a card trick, you know that one card is going to do what it needs to do in a certain situation that you need it to do to manipulate the cards in that way.
That's a fascinating question. I didn't see that one coming, and I work as a mentalist, so. But that's a yes and no. On the one hand, I do have set routines, but on the other hand, I'm like, wait. There's sunburst, yes?
Sunburst, yeah.
Sunburst. I'm like, sunburst. There's some possibilities with that, and I'm thinking, oh, if only Mark had brought the sunburst trading cards, I could have done something. There was Ace Comic Con. I'm not Ace Comic Con. Sci-Fi Minicon last year.
Okay.
You were there for that as well, right?
I was at the WinterCon.
Oh, you were at the WinterCon, yeah. Okay, at Sci-Fi Minicon, I saw an opportunity. All right, there was a Darth Vader, full Darth Vader costume, and a guy in the costume, obviously, and Imperial soldiers, some stormtroopers, and I improvised a stage performance based on the things that were there. And also, there were so many Star Wars themed booths there. I just gathered a bunch of Star Wars trading cards, and I made a deck of Star Wars character cards based on what was in that environment. So I didn't just have my own bicycle deck. I made a deck from what was in the environment. And I used the people in costume, especially the Darth Vader, for an experiment with the audience.
how much preparation does something like that take? Is this something
I had like 5 minutes to put that thing together.
No, that's what I'm saying. So you're in a situation where basically it's improvisational skills, but you have to have something underneath it to back yourself up.
Yeah.
So how much preparation for that backing up is there before you decide I'm even going to go out and put yourself in a situation where you're literally working on improv?
Well, okay, very good question. That's very fair. You see, I think the foundation of being able to improv anything is to have a proper foundation. I just more or less inadvertently gave my own answer. Like an actor must know their craft. They must know their ABCs. They must know all their fundamental skills before they can go way off the rails and do improv. Same with me. It's like both physically and educationally, I have a pretty big toolbox at my disposal. So when I see a certain situation, I think, okay, I'm going to get this equivalent of a torque wrench or this equivalent of a screwdriver, and I'm going to build some pretty cool DIY arts and crafts out of this, but with people's heads. Like, okay, that came out wrong. But you see what I'm getting at. You have to have a proper foundation. You have to have your knowledge base first. The bigger the toolbox you have in your arsenal, the more adept you can be to take a chance and do something spontaneous.
Well, I've been on set a lot with one woman who I call the magician. She could take any good situation and turn it bad.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of us are magicians, but why did you decide to become a magician?
Why did I decide?
Mentalist.
Well, okay, you know what? Lately I've been answering that question in parallel to other people's own interests. Like, Jen, you're an actress. You got into acting because you had a passion for
No, because someone asked me to be in a movie.
Someone asked you to do it, okay.
It was really dumb of him to ask me because I had no experience.
Okay.
And at this point, it's still a failure. So, but I actually went on and kept getting offered roles, but I had no interest in acting.
Okay.
Continue.
Okay, all right, fair enough. All right.
Yeah, that's my life path, though.
Okay, thank you for that. All right.
Sorry.
All right. I was at Anime NYC last year, and I had an opportunity to speak with some friends who were cosplayers. They asked me the same question: why did you become a magician? And I said, okay, miss, you're a cosplayer. Why are you a cosplayer? Let me give you some possible answers. You make these costumes at home. You spend months on them. You spend your hard-earned money on getting your materials, your Warbler thermoplastic, your supplies from Home Depot or from your local fabric stores. You put your things, your cosplays together for what? To what end? To what? To just go on social media and to get your clicks and to hopefully become a professional at this? No. For a lot of cosplayers, it's all about having fun. It's all about putting something together and bringing moments of joy and excitement to people at these big conventions, at these Comic-Con style conventions, and to bring an extra added joy to their lives. So it's a kind of mutual joy element going on, because the cosplayer gets all this fun from, showing off all their hard work and getting all this positive attention from it, and all the people who are taking pictures and admiring them and complimenting them and so forth, it's fun for them too. So apropos to that is one of the biggest reasons why I got into magic, because I spend all these hours working on my slides and cards and whatever I happen to be working on, and it brings an element of joy and happiness and excitement to the people that I'm performing for. And so, wow, this is pretty cool. It's a positive human interaction. Yeah. Sometimes it's even cathartic.
Although my dad told me to ask you to bend his forks back because he bends spoons and forks, and you would like his forks back.
Well, those were my forks.
Now we've been eating with our hands ever since all of our forks are bent.
Okay. Yeah, it's all these crazy shapes. I get that. That's why I make a very strict point of always bringing my own and doing whatever kinds of cutlery craziness that I can inflict upon them.
Are they your own forks and spoons?
Yes, I honestly, I'm giving away a secret here. I have to go through all these restaurant supply houses and stock up on insane amounts of cutlery. And I know a little bit too much about cutlery than I need to know.
Interesting.
I'll go to a restaurant and I'll feel, okay, this has a good weight, it has a good heft to it, a nice balance on the finger. I'm going through all these technical details every time I go to a restaurant. It's insane. It's like and it plagued my life in that way, you know. But it's not. Again, it's not just about that trick. It's more about the experience that can be crafted for that audience. Because going back to what we were talking about with how everyday things can influence movies is a major influence. And also, like when Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame came out, the Infinity Stones were really a trending topic and very topical. I actually came up at that time with Infinity Stone related mentalism. All right, so I had a point and I went off the rails. And okay, but anyway,
It's the bottom line, Robin, with anything I feel is the passion for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what drives you.
Yeah.
Back.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a gift. If you can find something that you really enjoy, you have a passion for, and it pays the bills, go for it. Even if you have to treat it as a side hustle because you've got a main job that does pay the bills, at least if it's on the side, it's still fun and it still brings you passion, you know? So I say...
And that's the key word, fun.
Yeah, fun, passion, because, you know, we've got the one life. We might as well add as much fun to that vessel of life as humanly possible.
So when you're deciding to work on your act, has there been a situation where something has gone wrong, and because of that improvisational skills and that foundation, you're able to turn it around and make it come out in a successful way?
This is where I have to exercise that element of mystery that I was talking about before. You know what they say about performing? Never let the audience see you sweat. All right? So in order to keep that mystery, you see, and that's the thing. Sometimes I go out of my way to create an experience where it looks like I messed up big time. And I even study certain facial gestures that you could do to do that, and I'm probably shooting myself in the foot for what I'm about to do for you fine people over here. One of the gestures that nervous people do when they're really trepidatious is they bite their lip. That is a subliminal gesture of nervousness, you know, and I'm sure just about everybody has been guilty of that, or at least several people have, you know. The biting of the lip. It's just like you are so nervous, or you have to bite something like your thumb or your nail or something. And I study these gestures so that when I employ them myself, I create this subliminal suggestion where I look like I've honestly and genuinely messed up. But then I lead them down into a deeper rabbit hole. Yay! It's a win-win for everybody.
So how much time do you need to prepare before you're ready to step out into the world? Like if somebody wants to be a mentalist right now, you said you were studying facial expressions, which is probably something that no one would think of doing. How long did you do that? How much preparation did you say, okay, now I'm ready to go try and go out in public? Or is it an ongoing process?
It's an ongoing process. You see, my work, what I learned a long time ago, even after I made my first act, it's never finished. All right? It may be complete at that stage. It may be functioning. It may work for Joe Public and it may get a nice fee. But there's always room for improvement. There's always something to add. There's always something that can be taken away. And there's always room for evolution. So therefore, any given piece that I have is never perfect, it's never finished, and there's always room for improvement, for extra imagination, for extra intelligence, and so on and so forth.
All right, so we're at social media time. Where can people find out more about you? Social media, YouTube, webtoon, website, whatever.
My own website, robinchanning.com. By the way, if anybody's interested, I got my brochures. If anybody wants business cards, I got those too. And social media, I find myself more on Instagram more often than anything else. I mean, I have a Facebook, I have a They call it X now. It used to be called Twitter. I'm not posting on that as much, but nothing against Elon Musk. But when I'm on those platforms, I tend to post more about my upcoming events. It's only on Instagram where I do stories that I'm like, okay, this is what I had for lunch. But yeah, so Instagram, Facebook, those are the two big ones. Yes, they're both owned by Meta. I get that, and I have more of my presence there. I have a TikTok. I have some of my videos there, but again, it's more about my work, not so much about hey, here's a cute quick video. So there that is at Robin Channing. So yeah.
Beautiful. I can't wait to see this happen.
Are we ready to see it happen?
I guess this interview is more or less built up a level of excitement and anticipation. What's this guy going to do next?
So we have about 5 minutes to go, so we want to have our final question beforehand.
Okay.
Charlie, you have any final thoughts, final question?
Well, I hope it's not my final thought, but I want to thank Robin for coming. I want to thank all you guys for coming on this cold night and to create our live studio audience. But especially want to thank Robin and these guys here. Always a pleasure to work with you.
Jen, you have a final question?
For me, there's lots of thoughts, behaviors, protocol that goes into what I do before a production or creation or performance. So I know that you pay attention to your diet, somewhat workouts you used to. Are there any thoughts, movements, procedures that you do the day before, week before, hours before a performance, or before you're going to create something magical?
Very good question. In terms of the direct work, like Mark will tell you, I had like a couple suitcases worth of stuff that I over prepare and over bring with me. What was it you said? It's better to have more than you need than to need what you don't have.
It's better to have and not need than need and not have.
Thank you. It's better to have and not need and need that. Okay, I just heard him say it correctly and I still messed it up. And I bill myself as a mentalist. Gosh, I feel embarrassed. All right. It's better to have and not need than need and not have. You see there? Take the time. Carefully pronounce it.
Write that all down. There'll be a test tomorrow.
I think I'm going to finally put something on X, and I think it's going to be that quote. I'm going to live by that. It's going to be a mantra, one of my many mantras. Thank you for that, Mark.
So Robin was nice enough to give away a one-on-one mentalist session after his performance after this show. Mm-hmm. So does everybody have their raffle ticket?
Yeah, it's a deep dive inner personality read.
One person might have a raffle ticket. Give me the other half. Give me the other half. Give me the other half. Put it in. There you go. So what exactly are you giving away for?
We got two.
Okay.
We got another one.
Okay.
Give me the other half.
Right, we got three.
So, to answer Mark's question,
yes, what are we giving away?
it is a deep dive inner personality reading. I'll be answering you asking some simple questions. You give some simple answers, and based on that experience, you might get to learn some really interesting things about yourself that you may never have known was there, but was there all the whole time. And I'm going to leave it at just that. It's a private one-on-one experience, and if we do it, if the raffle winner wins and they want their reading, it's a roughly 10-minute session, and we can do it, Kelly, we can do it
Right after the performance.
Right after the performance, after the show.
Yeah, right after the performance, and it's a one-on. I have to say it's a one-on-one thing, because if you know what the questions are in advance, then you can easily, fabricate the answers. So therefore, it has to be a one-on-one thing. Nobody else can know what the questions are. So.
All right, Robin.
Okay.
You're our guest.
Oh, okay, all right.
You're a mentalist. You should actually be able to determine the name of the person ahead of time.
I'm not on the clock yet. So
Right,
therefore,
going in.
I'm going in. I'm going to bring out
Bring
a
out
few,
one.
but I'm just going to drop one,
Down
and
to one.
then
What is the number?
what we have here
What is the
a
number?
3,
Three.
7,
7.
1,
1.
0,
0.
1,
1.
9.
9. Hey! There you go.
You scared the hell out of me, lady.
Well, as always, we have-
I think I just really jacked that one up with that one pause right before the last
I
digit.
think she won. Yeah. So
Congratulations.
everybody always wins something at our live shows and courtesy of the East Meadow Public Library in front of a live studio audience. That's not very
Your reaction probably wouldn't have been as good if I read them all really quickly. I had to give that last pause, and now you're like, there it is.
The live studio audience is upset that they all didn't win.
But yeah, the anticipation was there, you see.
But just make sure you guys always make sure you go to www.eastmeadow.info for the East Meadow Public Library for live shows. We have our next live show, which is going to be on Wednesday, March 13th at 7 p.m. And it's going to be actor, author, and producer Edward Mitski. And he will be giving away a book, a copy of his book that he just came out for our live studio audience. Yeah! So that about does it for this week on It Came From the Radio.
Does it do it?
Right here, right. Make sure you listen to our radio show every week. And we will see you next time.
You've been listening to It Came From the Radio with Matt Torres. The views of the show's hosts and guests did not necessarily reflect that of the management,